sometimes we go through dark seasons, and our process is sometimes a journey of learning about ourselves so that we can get to a better place. I hear a lot more about postpartum depression these days and how important it is to get help for feeling depressed after we bring our babies home. But I don't hear a lot about how different seasons of parenting can also impact our mood. And as Christian moms, we may feel the pressure to be joyful despite challenges we are experiencing, so we hide what we're feeling. We might believe that if we prayed more, any negative feelings would just go away. So we might start to think something's wrong with us or something's wrong with our faith. Hello and welcome to Mom's Way to Wellness. If you are a mom who feels lonely, unseen, and overwhelmed with the demands of motherhood, you are in the right place. I am your host, Aida Maravillas. I help overwhelmed moms transform their challenges into mental health and generational well-being as we talk about the struggles of motherhood, parenting, and mental health through a lens of faith. I offer resources and guidance to help you work through the challenges that are impacting your relationship with yourself and with others. Let's get into today's episode. Today's topic can feel pretty heavy, and that's because it has to do with recognizing the signs of depression, how it can be triggered through motherhood, how we can look for light during a dark season, and when it might be time to get some help. The overall heart for this podcast is to help us to get to wellness and healing, but it isn't fair to do that without acknowledging that sometimes we go through dark seasons, and our process is sometimes a journey of learning about ourselves so that we can get to a better place, so that we can become stronger and embrace our well-being. And that's going to impact the legacy that we are living out for our kids today. As a disclaimer, the content in today's episode is a starting point to help you recognize the signs of depression, but it's not meant to be used to formally diagnose yourself. There are a few ways to get help if you need, and I'll share that information at the end of the episode, so please listen to the end. One thing that we might be able to relate to at one point or another when it comes to being a mom is feeling lonely or isolated, but it can come in different seasons of parenting. I remember how lonely my early days of motherhood were. I was a young mom and I had no idea just how much the structure of each day would revolve around the schedule of a newborn. I'm not sure how we can even prepare to understand what it's actually like to manage the healing taking place in our bodies after labor and delivery, on top of entering a season of sleep deprivation and taking care of a tiny human who is 100% vulnerable and dependent on us for every meal, diaper change, and any other needs that they can only express by crying. Can you relate to those early days of being a mom and the shock it may have been to your system? The bond that was shared so intimately with our baby in the womb changed, and it changed fast, as our newborn was introduced to the world outside of us and we had to share them with others. And we were literally left empty in our body while we held onto a baby in our arms and started to figure out what being a mom was going to look like as we stepped into our new roles. I hear a lot more about postpartum depression these days and how important it is to get help for feeling depressed after we bring our babies home. But I don't hear a lot about how different seasons of parenting can also impact our mood. As our babies grow and their needs change, we can find ourselves hiding signs of depression behind busy schedules, filtered picture-worthy moments, and even spiritual language, rather than taking the time to peel back the layers and naming it for what it really is. Naming depression can be a hard thing to do for a few reasons. It may be a taboo subject to bring up in our family or culturally. We might picture it to look different than it actually does because depression doesn't always look like lying in bed all day. In the faith community, we may have a hard time acknowledging an emotional struggle if we're expected to live in perpetual joy and overlook all of the complex emotions that God has designed in our bodies. If depression is linked to a past traumatic event, an incident of violence, or a violation, we might be expected to forgive and forget, even though our bodies still remember. Our healing may actually be a process rather than a one-time event, and that could be really hard to recognize in the faith community sometimes. But I need to tell you something. Experiencing feelings of sadness, discouragement, or even depression doesn't mean that we're not measuring up as moms. It actually confirms that we're human. We were designed to feel our emotions, and that could get really uncomfortable sometimes. It could get very uncomfortable for others when we feel like we're in tune with how we feel. It actually confirms that we're human, that we were designed to feel our emotions, and it can create an opportunity for us to call out to God and ask Him to walk with us in the valley that we find ourselves in. Our struggles also confirm that sometimes we need help. And the most important part of today's episode is to recognize when it's time to reach out for help and what that can look like. But first, let's talk about some reasons why the signs are hard to recognize. We might imagine that it has to look a lot more severe than how it is really presented, so we dismiss the signs that are right in front of us. We might have a hard time connecting how we're feeling to a specific traumatic event, so we dismiss ourselves, even though it can be linked to a lot of different things that are adding up and becoming too heavy for us to carry overall. And as Christian moms, we may feel the pressure to be joyful despite challenges we are experiencing, so we hide what we're feeling. We might believe that if we prayed more, any negative feelings would just go away. So we might start to think something's wrong with us or something's wrong with our faith. We might feel judged for how much faith we actually have based on what someone else might think if they knew that we were struggling. We might have a hard time believing that God will meet us in our weakness, somehow thinking that we are less deserving than someone else, or that we have to get ourselves together before we bring our burden to God. And sometimes we might just keep ourselves busy as a way of distraction from how we're feeling. I'm sure there are a lot of other reasons why we can overlook how we're feeling, so sometimes we just need to set aside the distractions and look at the symptoms. Some common signs of depression can look like constantly feeling tired and fatigued even after rest. Everything starts to feel like it's so hard because the energy to do it just isn't there. We might feel indifferent, numb, or disconnected from ourselves, our kids, and our loved ones. So we're not able to enjoy those moments that we're supposed to kind of enjoy with them or be expected to enjoy with them. We might not be able to connect with our kids or tune into their needs in a way that fosters our connection with each other. There might be a feeling of loss of interest in things that you used to enjoy. So this can be a hard one to recognize because we have to adapt and be flexible to how we use our time when we have kids. But if you used to love working out and now you just don't, or you used to like hanging out with friends and now you find yourself isolating from others or avoiding social gatherings, that can be a loss of interest in something you used to enjoy. So sometimes feeling that loss of interest can be hard to recognize or kind of like put your finger on. Feeling irritable and on edge, easily angered, argumentative, or short-tempered. So there could be a small thing in the house that just kind of you reach a boiling point and just blow up. You might be in a bad mood towards others. So sometimes we might not even realize like how we're coming across to others, because we might feel like, well, I'm not in a bad mood. I don't know what you're talking about, but we might really be giving off some negative vibes. We might see everything from a negative perspective. It might be really hard to recognize the positive things. And so we might find ourselves complaining a lot and just having a hard time holding gratitude for the things that we have in front of us. We might feel highly emotional, finding it easy to cry and having a hard time kind of holding those emotions inside of us. Or having trouble with sleep. And that could look like not being able to fall asleep or not being able to stay asleep, or the opposite, falling asleep all of the time or sleeping too much or not being able to get out of bed. And one of the most concerning signs is feeling hopeless, having thoughts that your family would be better off without you, or having a hard time seeing that things can ever get better, or having a hard time remembering that you haven't always felt this way and things have been better at some point. I have to say that I appreciate the way a lot of Christian music is speaking to the way life can be hard while still turning to the hope that we have as believers. I'm thankful for verses that acknowledge emotional difficulties and then turn to God as a source of comfort and strength. Psalm 42, 5 and 6 says, "Why am I discouraged? Why is my heart so sad? I will put my hope in God. I will praise him again, my Savior and my God." I am so thankful for a God that we don't have to apologize to for feeling our emotions. And I know I'm getting emotional here, and if you know me well, you know that I am an emotional person. And sometimes emotions can become very uncomfortable for other people. And so I want to say that I haven't seen God rebuke us for our emotions in the way that people do. I see God open his arms and embrace us in our sadness. He gives us strength in our weakness. But sometimes we need help learning how to cope. We need to have a safe place to talk, or we need to learn about ourselves and why we feel the way that we do. And we're able to get this help before we find ourselves in a mental health emergency. A question that we should consider is, when has depression reached a level that warrants reaching out for help? And one way that we can recognize that is the feelings are overwhelming. The heaviness of the load feels like it's too much to carry, and no one around seems to understand. A second way is that the symptoms are impacting our overall daily functioning and our ability to get through our daily responsibilities. So it could be that it's hard to get the sleep that we need to function. It's hard to get out of bed in the mornings. It's hard to get the kids to school. It's hard to get the kids to school or to their other activities. It's hard to make decisions and get things done that keep the household moving along. Another sign is that you've tried to do some things to help you feel better, but they haven't helped. And so that could be a sign that it's time to reach out for help. And the most concerning sign is that you're experiencing feelings of intense hopelessness and having a hard time imagining that things will ever get better. And so those are some signs that it might be time to get some help. And so what does help look like? How can you take a step forward in reaching out to someone? And this could be hard when you're feeling alone or when you've been isolating. And so it's super important to start by talking with someone that you trust. And that could be a friend, a relative, a pastor, or even your doctor. And if you don't belong to a faith community, maybe you can visit a service, or maybe you can make a phone call and reach out to someone who holds a pastoral position in your community. It's just important to start somewhere. We were designed for human-to-human contact, so find a way to connect with someone equipped to help. You can also text the crisis helpline at 988, especially if you're feeling hopeless and you're not sure what to do. There are humans on the other side of the text crisis helpline. And again, that number is 988. Consider finding a therapist or a counselor to work with you. Working with a professional can help by giving you a safe and confidential place to process what you're going through. Some churches might offer peer counseling programs, or your insurance might cover counseling services, or there can be a mental health agency in your community that offers a sliding fee scale for the services. And so it is important to consider meeting with a professional, someone who is skilled and trained to be able to help you process what it is that you're feeling. Sometimes you start with a friend, and a friend is the one who makes the suggestion or tries to connect you with help. If it's during the school year and some of the struggles are with your kids, you can even talk to someone at the school who can point you in the right direction. What helps will look different for each one of us. And what matters is finding the help that will work for you. I want to encourage you that there is hope and that healing is possible. Psalm 126:5 says, "Those who plant in tears will harvest with shouts of joy." The second half of Psalm 35 says, "Weeping may last through the night, but joy comes in the morning." Nothing is wasted with God when we go through something hard. We're still on our way to being well, one step at a time for us and for our kids. So I want to encourage you that if any of the symptoms from today's episode resonated with you, if you find that you are in a season of depression and that you don't want to feel this way, I encourage you to seek out the help that you need, because you don't have to stay stuck in how you're feeling. Thank you for listening to today's episode. Please subscribe and leave a review. This will help others find the show. If you would like to receive additional resources on motherhood and wellness, you can join my community by subscribing to my email list at aidamaravillas.com. Remember, wellness is possible one step at a time.